I have a 41 Chevrolet and I want to get a profile of that Beltline. So what I did is I taped off a section that I knew I wanted it. I made a set of marks that were perpendicular to the body line. Okay, then I took me a set of dividers. I set it a known width and I went down and I scribed as perfectly as I could everything onto this piece of aluminum. Now I'm going to go trim that and file that as close as I can to that piece of aluminum and test fit it again. And it should be really, really close. But once I'm done that, I'm going to take and punch some real small holes right into here, then wax this with car wax. Really, really, really good. I'm going to come in with body filler and I'm going to make an exact duplicate so that when I make the tool to remake this body line, I can have an exact replica of that image. So let me get the next step done and you can see what I'm talking about. So here we are. I got the part trimmed down and ready. Holes drilled in it and sanded. I'm going to use a little bit of fine strand fiberglass. I got a set of magnets up here to where all I got to do is come in, set it in place. I could tape it like a tent, and then I'm going to put a layer of body filler on, put this on, and then body fill up and through those holes so that I get a good bond. And then when it all sets up and dries, I can pull this off, sand it, and I'll have a perfect impression of what that is. So I already popped it off, but this is, I started to peel the tape back, and then what I did is the tape and the part I popped off all at once. This is what I ended up with. It did get a little bit of an air pocket, but I think we'll be fine. And now what I'll do is I'll trim it up. But when I'm done, this will be a gauge that I should be able to put anywhere and be right, and it'll be accurate enough to where I can make a Pullmax die or a beadrolling die. So let me get to the next step. So here we are again. I took it to the belt sander and the bandsaw and the belt sander and just cleaned it up. And you can see now we have a very accurate template of what that belt line is supposed to look like. Now, even though this back is damaged, you can see that it's still really accurate. It wants to lift it and pull it. Part of that's because it's deformed from the rust. But now I can make a die that'll stamp that. Let's come up here, let's check it right in here. There's on the hood. But now we can make a die based off of this, and we'll have the whole belt line that we can use anywhere on the truck that we need it. I got asked to show how I make Pullmax dies. Here I have a piece of 4140. It's annealed, it's not hardened. And I've already made the positive. I've already made the positive earlier, but it's basically the same process. I matched them up, indexed off one side, and I scribe it. I went in here with my tool and I just scribed right along that edge. The next step is I'll go in and I'll cut that out roughly with the bandsaw, trying to leave my scribed line in place. And then I'll begin filing. Here it is off of my Milwaukee Portaband in the Swag Off-Road fixture that I've shared before on other videos. And now it's just a matter of taking files. I have a bunch of different files at different coarsenesses, and I will go in and clean it up and get it close and then start sanding and polishing. So let me start filing and then we'll move on to the next step. Here we are. I used not only my assortment of regular machinist files, but I also used the Milwaukee band file. And we have created the die. From now on, this will be the die, this will be the punch. This is the male, this is the female. Okay, and you can see they're fairly accurate. I do like the accuracy of my die versus the mold, the sweep, better. So now what I'm going to do is, since I like this accuracy more, I'm going to spray this top surface with Dykem, let it dry off, and then I'm going to rub the two parts together. And wherever the Dykem is removed, I will start removing material and get that to get the punch to match the die. And then we can move on to the next step. So here we are. I think it's close enough. There's a little bit of a light gap that you can see, but it should be fine. So now we're going to put it in the mill, and we're going to make this surface parallel to the die surface. And once the punch is parallel to the die, we can then even both sides up and make everything square. We'll machine a notch to weld the tool holders on, and then we will also drill 2 holes and tap them for number 10 screws. And the reason that is if I want to do this detail and I know the distance from here to the edge, I can put a flange on the part, shrink or stretch that flange where it needs to be, and I can use that as a backstop to run the part. The next after that is I will add a little bit of relief here and here. I will also add a little bit of relief in this dimension. That way it'll go around turns the way it's supposed to and go around the curved part the way it's supposed to. The body on that 41 has a 8-inch radius, so I need to make sure that an 8-inch radius will go around this. If you don't do that, the edges will coin the part. But as far as the initial making of the die, that's how I did it. It's just files, band file, sanding, and this will get polished just like my hammerheads. I'll probably take it to at least a 240 or a 400 grit. I may even buff them and polish them out. But that's the first stage of making the dies. So let's say the shape in there real nice and square and everything. We went in and made them parallel again, because when you go to put this shape in, it can make it out of parallel. And then we finish the sides and then cut the notches for the stems. I forgot to take a picture of them in the fixture, but I use these piece of aluminum to shim them, and I use these as stops to keep them straight. And I put them in the fixture, tack the corners, check it in the machine, and then weld it. The way that I weld is I will do this first seam this way, go to the opposite side and do that seam going the opposite direction, and then the last 2 welds pulling towards the first seam. And that helps give it that minimal distortion. It pulls the least that way. Now what I have to do is, once they cool off, I'll start doing all of my relief. I'll start putting my relief edges in, and I'll do a video of that as soon as I'm done. This side is untouched and this side has been relieved. I may relieve it a little bit more, but the panel that this has to do has an 8-inch radius. You can see I got rid of the sharp corners and sharp edges. The panel that this has to do is an 8-inch radius, so you don't want it coining on the corners. Now this fits it pretty good, but as you can see with my relief now, I could go down to a 6-inch, and you can see I still have a little bit of relief in the corners, and that's what we want. We want it to have a little bit of feed, so it can feed in and get to where it needs to be, and relief so that it doesn't coin when it stamps. The punch needs more work than the die because there are no concave panels. They're all convex. So everything will cup into the punch and it'll cup away from the die. So we'll relieve the corners and give it a little bit of feed, but we won't do as much to the punch as to the die as we do to the punch. So let me get this finished up and we'll give it a test run. So it's hard to see the scribe lines, but I have 3 scribe lines, center and then an 1/8 inch offset on both sides. And they run all the way down the part. I tried as best I could to leave all of that alone and only put my relief on the outer thirds of the material. And as you can see, the 8 inches what the radius will be, and I have relief on a 6 inch sweep. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit. These will get polished at least to like a 240 grit, but I'm just going to clean them up for now and then give them a shot and make any adjustments I need to now before I really polish them. So I did run it off camera. I started in the high hop mode. This would be for shearing when you're doing louvers. And I just made a single pass just to kind of bring it in. Then I slowly worked it down as I was moving the part back and forth till I was in the high hop position. And I went 2 passes on the high hop. And then I put it into the 1.7 and I just gave it its final planishing in the 1.7 mode. So you can see I have a little bit of chatter marks I need to go in and get out of the dies. These corners are probably still just a little too sharp, and that's probably what's doing it. A good polishing would also probably help. But other than that, I'm really pleased. They did a nice job. We can go compare. So there's the door. Let's set it right on the door, and you can see it's very, very close. I think that's going to work out really well. So I'm working on this cab corner, and this is the 2-dimensional transition of that belt line. This is the first part after being ran through the Pullmax. I'll run it through one more time, and then just to planish it. Then what I'll do is between this mark and this mark here, that's where most of this arc is in the door. I'm going to put it in the Pullmax and just slowly put that arc into it and work it around. And then I'll be ready to planish and finish it out. So this is right out of the Pullmax, just by feel for how I thought it should be arced. Okay, don't look too bad up top. We need to bring it around a little bit more. Down here it might need a little bit more arcing, a little more work. But I'm gonna go back in, and so I can tell now that up to here, I think I'm about right. And then I'm going to arc it in just a little bit more. I'll make another pass on the Pullmax and see what it looks like. I'm not going to cut it down shorter because I want that for leverage when I'm bringing it through. I'll cut it down shorter, and I'll cut this end down once I'm real close. And I'll run it through the planishing hammer and get rid of this line. I'll planish this to, I think it's a 4-inch radius. This one came in really nice right off of the form. This one I'll just tighten up a little bit. Mine needs to clock around just a little bit more. But it's lining up pretty good. I'm lining up really nice with the door lid. I'm lining up really nice with that. Part of what's holding me up is that this is swollen up and I have my inside sitting on its outside. So the next thing that I'm going to do is we're not using very much of the sheet metal on the back of this cab. It's just too far gone. By the time I do a repair here, a repair all the way along the bottom, delete that, put this belt line in, I'm better off making the whole back of the cab, the back bottom half of the cab. And we're also going to make around the door, around the window eventually. But that's the process to where I took a 2-dimensional belt line through the Pullmax and wrapped it around the corner. And it's going to take a little bit more work to get it right, but I think we're on the right track, and I think we got the right shape now.